Hello, welcome back to the mini-series. Today we are talking about sequels, the secrets to writing a good sequel and the hidden power that a good sequel will have in your story. If you're just tuning in, last week we talked about scenes. You can find that video right there. I just talk about the bare bones of what goes into a good scene, and today we're doing the same thing with sequels. When I say sequel, I don't mean book 2 of a series, I mean the scene that comes after the scene. I love a good sequel. I don't know if y'all can tell, I'm very excited to talk about sequels today. Let's break it down. Okay, so just for a quick overview before we get into sequels, a scene consists of a goal. Your character wants something. It's not the overall goal of the book, it's just a smaller goal that will get them to the eventual big goal. They want something, they run into conflicts, little things that just mess them up along the way, and then disaster strikes. And the entire goal kind of blows up in their face, and they realize that they might need to find a new goal. Like, maybe this goal isn't gonna work. So naturally, what comes after a big disaster is figuring out what to do next, right? And that's why you need sequels in your story. If you didn't know about sequels until this video, don't worry, you're already writing them. They're like kind of infused into story. It's natural for us to write these, but sometimes we miss them. And when we miss them, the story can get a little disjointed. Including a scene and a sequel makes the pacing so much better. And including the right ratio of scene to sequel makes the pacing better as well. So let's talk about what makes a good sequel. When I say good scene, I mean the character is acting and running into problems. When I say good sequel, I mean the character is reacting and making a new decision. Reacting can mean lots of things, but typically in the sequel, it will mean that the character steps back and analyzes what just happened, and it's a good chance for a subplot to either progress or for the theme to be re-emphasized and revisited. So the sequel goes like this: reaction, dilemma, decision. First, your character reacts to what just happened. There was a huge disaster, right? Where do you go from there? What do you do next? If everything you were thinking was going to solve the problem just blew up in your face, what now? Is there a new problem, or are we dealing with the same problem and finding a different solution? Once you figure that out, you're at the dilemma. What is the problem you're solving? What is the character struggling with? What do they need to accomplish? Is it a physical dilemma? Is it an emotional dilemma? Is it outer or inner conflict? In a sequel, you want your character to think through this dilemma step by step and come to the last piece, which is the decision. And this is why scenes and sequels are so beautiful, because the sequel will naturally just lead right back into the scene. The character makes a decision about the dilemma they just ran into, and now they have a brand new goal for the next scene. This decision comes from their reaction and analyzation of the dilemma, right? And so in this process of them reacting and analyzing the problem and what just happened, we get to see where they're at with the theme. Are they making progress on the theme? Are they learning things? Are they adjusting? Or are they regressing? Are you writing a negative arc? Does the sequel give you a chance to show that your character is going even more downhill in the way they are coping with all of these disasters? That's what a sequel is for. Huge opportunity for theme. Because the character is going to learn something every time a strategy fails, right? And usually the strategies that your character is using are based on a misbelief, a fear. They're based on something wrong, and we want them to learn the true thing. Are they seeing that old strategies aren't working and new strategies are? Are they warming up to using new strategies because their old strategies keep failing? Where are they at with that? Another magical thing about a sequel is that it's a rest. Everyone needs to rest. Your story cannot be going all of the time. It just can't. It can't be action, 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 action. Go, 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 go. Your readers will get exhausted. You will get exhausted. Your characters cannot do that. They are people. They are people that need to take breaks and decompress and have moments where they're not facing all this conflict, at least not as much. Also, not only do your characters need sequels to be realistic, but your story needs sequels for contrast. The sequel is when things are better. They're kind of calm, they're going okay, characters get to laugh and chat and talk and recover, and it gives you a chance to highlight how the conflict feels, because in a sequel there should be a little bit less. And your reader, if it's conflict all the time, is not going to care because they don't get to see what life without conflict looks like. It's the same thing as why it's so important to not skip setup in the beginning of your story, which is what I always used to do. You don't want to skip setup because it shows what real, like, normal life is like right now. And when that inciting incident hits, when that first plot point hits, normal life is gone. But if we don't see how normal life is, we don't care that normal life is gone. It's the same with the scene in a sequel. If we only see the scenes, we don't care that all of this is happening. The sequels allow us a break and that hope of, oh, maybe things can be good. Maybe things can go well. So last week we used two examples. We used an example from my story that I'm currently writing, which is running from the police. And we used another random example, which was a party planner. And I'm kind of going like a cute YA contemporary route with that one. So in running from the police, reaction. Goal is get away from the police. Conflict is, let's say, starts raining. Disaster is car flips. Now what? Reaction would probably be get out of the car and run. And if you pull it off, you can set that up in a way that the character gets away, car's in flames, cops think the character's dead. So character gets out of the car, runs away, and all of a sudden they're in dilemma. Okay, now I don't have a car, cops are still looking for me. What do I do? Where do I go next? And you can bring them to a decision. Maybe your character wants to steal another car, or just go on foot, or change the route that they're taking so that they don't run into police again. And any of those routes will lead the character to the next goal. On the flip side, with the YA contemporary cute little party story, if your character's goal is to plan a party because they want their love interest to come and they want to see them and they want to impress them, and the conflict is that they are running late and they're like speeding and driving like crazy and stressing like crazy to get there in time, and the disaster is that the love interest can only come for like 15 minutes and the main character misses the love interest, like barely misses that window when they're there. Reaction is probably going to be that main character either staying through the party and trying to put on a brave face, or like going home, because that's kind of a disaster. Or maybe their reaction is, no, I still want to see this person. Like if your character is very like headstrong and is like, no, I'm still gonna see you, they text that person as their reaction, hey, are you free later tonight? And if that person says yes, then you have the dilemma of maybe your character already had plans, and now they have the dilemma of, okay, which one do I do? And they have to decide, and then that brings them to a whole new goal. On the opposite side of that, your character gets there late and is sad and doesn't feel like the love interest really likes them that much, doesn't really want to reach out to the love interest, doesn't really want to bother them, so they go home. Their reaction is to go home, and their dilemma all night is, maybe they really don't like me. Maybe I shouldn't invite them to stuff anymore. And if that is their decision to not invite them to stuff anymore, or to pull back because they feel like the love interest doesn't like them, the new goal is to act normal, pull back. Don't be as forward with that person, right? And then you run into conflict and disaster. It's a beautiful cycle that keeps the story spinning until the very end. So when you are writing a sequel, reaction, dilemma, decision, make sure that you are incorporating theme. A lot of writers say, you know, every single scene needs to have a purpose. Sequels count as scenes, like in the grand scheme of things. You want to count them as separate scenes, right? Like if you're doing a scene layout, it's gonna be one, and then sequel is gonna be two. And for a sequel, the purpose of the scene is to highlight the theme and to show where your character's at with that. And also just to show like how your character navigates disasters, how they make hard decisions, how they respond to situations. It's a fun little break to get deeper in the character's head and see more of what's really going on. As for ratio with scenes and sequels, typically you want 50 to 70% of your book to be scenes. Depends on how fast-paced it is, but you don't need a sequel for every single scene. You really don't. Like you could have 2 scenes in a row and the sequel might be like that fast in between both of them, and it doesn't really count as like its own thing, or it's just isn't there. So about 50 to 70% of your book is a safe amount to dedicate to scenes, and 30 to 50% is a safe amount for sequels. You don't want less than 30% of your book to be sequels, I would say. And yeah, it is like really aggressive to count percentages in your book, so don't worry about it too much, but just try to keep a balance there, because your book will feel really fast and stressful if it's only scenes and find really slow and draggy if it's only sequels. So it's about striking a good balance, and it's about what your characters are going to do that determines how much of each one you have. So that is the lowdown on sequels. Next week, we will talk about motivation reaction units as the last episode in this little mini series of just bare bones for books. Motivation reaction units are very fun, and they're like so nitpicky and detailed, but they are so helpful and transformative. So I will see you next week with a video on motivation reaction units. Until then, have fun writing, have a good week, and happy trails.